Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Gwyn, and the Insider crew.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening. If you aren't currently a PCA member and own a Porsche, what are you waiting for? Grab that VIN. Become a PCA member simply by going to pca.org. If you don't currently own a Porsche, check out our test drive program where we'll unlock resources to help you find that Porsche for your driveway or garage. Being a member also allows you to join in on the PCA member-only spring raffle, where this spring we're giving away or raffling off a GT3 plus $35,000. And as of today, we're also raffling off 3 911s and $35,000. So 4 cars total. Just one of the many benefits of being a PCA member. Of course, we want to thank Pirelli for their sponsorship of the podcast. Without their support, none of this would happen. We're at PCA National Office. I've got Manny to my right, Damon at the controls, and we have a longtime PCAer, someone that started out, I think, in PCA's high performance drivers education program, went on to club racing in PCA, happened to win this little race called, was it, the Rolex 24.
Little race.
I think got a cool watch out of it all.
Got a watch
out of all. But more importantly, dear friend of ours, owner of TPC Racing, Michael Levitas. Thanks for coming back, my friend.
Vu, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Well, today it's, if you've joined us because of the title, it's probably gonna, we get a lot of letters, let's say, and, we review it, and people often say we are just like, how would you say, just blowing up the, whatever Porsche is putting out there and can never say anything negative. And that's not true. I think Manny, as well as I, often can criticize, but do so in a constructive way. And I think you do that as well. And
you can ask anyone from Porsche. When I have a minute with them, I have a whole list of gripes and complaints.
But the question is, has Porsche lost their way? And Manny, I'm going to pull out this recent letter to the editor that was published in Porsche Panorama, talking about how Porsche has lost its way, and you were talking about the 911T.
It's the article that I wrote about the 911T.
So here's what I don't understand. Some people just have to have this defining line in the sand where one particular period of car is better than the current car or better than anything else. And you know, it's not uncommon that the car that they find the best is the one that happens to be on their driveway or in their garage, right? But we're here to just talk about, you currently own, and hopefully I'm not disclosing your whole collection here, but you own everything from air-cooled with 901 transmissions, 915 transmissions. You own mid-engine Porsches. You own water-cooled Porsches. You own GT street cars, and you own, obviously, and work on Porsche race cars. So I feel you're qualified. Like if anyone's going to say, has Porsche lost their way, you know the complete range.
I would like to think that I really do,
Yeah.
because I exude the entire Porsche. I get the whole thing. From I'm the buyer, I'm the member, I really am the PCA club member, and I do everything from the DE, like you said, to the pro racing. I love the cars. I've got the different generations because it reminds me of where I started and where we currently are. I love being relevant to that because I think by just staying back in one generation of car, you're really losing an opportunity, the way that I look at it, into learning how the car has evolved, because I feel it's all about the evolution of the car.
Well, let me share with you what seems to have triggered
gave us a great idea for a podcast.
Great idea for a podcast.
Exactly. So I because we published it, I think we can say this gentleman, Gary Purser, Hill Country region, wrote in, said a big no thanks to the Carrera T. And it's like many of my PCA friends who put hundreds and thousands of miles on our beloved Porsches, I do not crave PASM, rear axle steering, silly big wheels, short sidewall tires, PVT, sport chrono, short shifters, a heavy 4-way electric sport seats, although big brakes are plus and ceramics and blah, blah, blah. I get it. I get it. There's a charm for each generation of car. And the older you go, the more simplistic it is. And probably many would say it's analog. But everything that he just said, all that equipment on the newer cars, and also we know modern cars are much bigger, but let's just put it into reference. He talks about how the standard weight of the 911T is 3,316 pounds. If I go back to the last air-cooled car, the 993, that was 3,200 pounds. So for 116 pounds, you're getting all of this technology and a bigger car and performance that would run circles around the 993. And you own the 993.
I own the 993. I've got the 993. And Gary, I have to tell you that if you were to come down and go for a ride with us, or with me, in the Carrera T, you would change your perspective. Whether it's with the manual gearbox, which keeps getting better and better, because I've had the 991 Gen 2 with the manual gearbox, and it was so much better than my 993 or any of my G50 cars. Manny, you've been driving a G50 car plenty, and you've had the 915 cars, and the way that selects the gears is better. And then when they jumped into the 991 Gen 2 and they took basically the PDK gearbox and turned it into a manual, it's magnificent.
Yeah.
And then if you drive the PDK car itself, the new generation of the 992, I got to tell you, Gary, it's unbelievable. It's not that it does it it's not just that it does it better. It's that it has even more attitude than my 901, than my G body, than my 993, it keeps getting better. It doesn't lose its way. And like you pointed out, Phil, the difference of 100 pounds, the fact that they can put airbags, crumple zones, safety equipment, the safety is so paramount in these cars. For myself, my attitude has always been as a racer, because I do really love the racing, and I love racing a Porsche. And there's really, it's a real simple deal. Why? Number one, they win. And I like to win.
Exactly.
Number two, they're the safest car to race in. And that is the most paramount.
Yeah.
Is safety. And that is an incredible feature that Porsche puts into their cars. And the fact that they can build these cars so safe, carry the same attitude, the same level of excitement. The excitement, the attitude gets better. So for me, Gary, you got to come for a ride with me. Take you around Summit Point, any of the racetracks by your house.
I can appreciate the evolution. I can appreciate the older cars as much as the newer cars. And as he said, Gary, we're not trying to pick on you. We just thought this was a great topic to talk about, because you're not the
he's
first
not the only one who thinks that way.
Yeah, he's not the only one that thinks that way. And I remember back in the day where Manny used to tell this story of you and Pete Tremper club racing, and he was in his 914.6 with, I think, a 901 in his car.
Yep. So
901, and you were club racing your modified 964, and you guys were running neck and neck, and one day you decided to switch cars, and you found out how much harder Pete was working in his car versus you, and Pete was going, no wonder he can keep up with me, because he doesn't have to work as hard. And then fast forward, you and I changed cars where we were autocrossing. You took my 87 911 out, and I took your 964, and I go, oh my gosh, he's working so much less, and he can go back into first gear.
I could find gears on his car. I'm like, even though it's a G50,
right?
And the G50 is known as like a modern, like, shifting transmission that works, but compared to his 964, it's years difference.
It's years different. And you can see the evolution even of the G50, because my first race car was one of the first Wooder cars. So it was a 2000, but I had a choice between the 99, which was still the gearbox out of the 993 with the older internals. So it literally had the big mechanical throws that the 993s had, carrying it forward into Wooder. But then when they put in the cable and they improved the internals, it even got better. And you keep getting better as they go further forward. But I agree with you, Viv. Like, I purposely, I took out my 71. I've got a beautiful 71S. And I've had people ask me, like, why don't you put a 915 gearbox in it? I'm like, there's something about driving that old dog box.
Oh, yeah,
It
absolutely.
makes you appreciative. You've got to know, like
Sure.
if you're stopping at an intersection, it's a little downgrade, you start off in second.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because it is a big chore to go from first up into second, and you learn that if you've driven a
And
991.
that's the romance of
It's a
driving
romance.
the older
It
cars.
is. It is.
I fast forward to a few weeks ago when I was autocrossing in my 996 and seeing all the PDK cars out there, Caymans and 911s. Oh man, just seeing how they're not even thinking about what they have to do with their transmission. The car is doing it, but they're still having fun because they're focusing on where they're putting the car, their steering inputs, their brake and gas. Like honestly, if I was going to buy another car to go autocrossing, I totally would go PDK.
Oh,
I just feel like that's just one more. I feel that's like a 2-second advantage. Damon, what do you think on a PDK versus?
I don't know about a
manual?
2-second advantage, but you're going to have an advantage in the start of each run with launch control, whether or not you use launch control or not, you're going to have a little bit of an advantage. And then maybe some slower corners, being able to just shift into first without thinking about it.
Yeah.
But I rarely use first. So maybe not 2 seconds, but maybe half a second to a second, I would say.
Damon, it is worth. I've got a car. I've got a 991 turbo.
Oh, that's
which
your
I-
Optima.
My Optima car.
Yeah.
And I'll launch the car, and you're right. It's like it pins you back in the seat on the launch to the extent where you get tunnel vision as you leave. It leaves so violently, and you shift up into second. If I'm going really fast, I'll pull third gear. But then as you're coming around the corner, you're looking all the way around the corner. And Damon, the cool part is you could not do this in a manual It's hard because
Yeah, it's very hard.
you're holding the wheel, you're holding the shifter, you're holding yourself in place, and you're coming out of the corner right at that terminal speed because you don't want to pull second in the middle of the corner because it'll overslow the corner.
Right.
And then right on the exit when your hands are going open, it's hard. You try pulling second on my PDK car, I just start squeezing the pedal, and right when my hands are open, I hit the little squat switch. Explosion of power, and man, you just rock it out of the corner.
The change is perfect.
It's perfect.
Perfect.
Yep.
Every time. Seamless every time.
Yeah.
On the power.
So it was interesting with I recently did a Pro Solo, which has the drag lights. It's an autocross with drag starts and reaction times. So if you have PDK, you would think it's easier, but like you have 2 seconds for launch control, to engage, and then it kind of shuts off. So there is that. But if you have a manual transmission, you're sitting there, both hands on the wheel, holding the revs at 3,000 RPM, not looking straight ahead towards your first gate, but you're looking to the side towards the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And you have to reaction time as the third light goes off, then you have to look, see where you're going and where the next turn is. So yeah, PDK, there's an advantage, I think, to having that.
To that extent, Vu, when I picked up I bought a 991 Gen 2 because it's such a great car. And I have to admit to
991 Gen 2.
to 991 Gen 2, so it was a 3-liter.
Yeah,
They had just come out with the car.
It's the first gen.
First gen of, right,
Of
correct.
the modern T.
Correct. And I love the car. I got it with a manual transmission because I thought, hey, it's like, I fell into the trap where I was like, okay, in order to be like a sports car, it's got to have the mat. Because at that time, I had just come out of the H pattern boxes, going into the manual car, the actual sequential cars in the race car. And I thought, oh, I'll do the manual. But I bought the car, and then right afterwards, I was really, I understood the PDK more.
Yeah.
No, I've never gone back. And the new PDK and the 992s are that much. It's like going from a G50 box to a modern box. It's that much better.
Yeah, and again, depending on what you want to do with the car. If you want the romance and you're driving the street and you want the interaction, they make a phenomenal manual that you can enjoy. But for pure like times and performance, it's hard to do. Other like Ferraris, do they even make a manual anymore?
They have made manual for quite a few years now.
Do their enthusiasts have this conversation as much as we do?
What's interesting is a lot of them will take the older Ferraris, older meaning like the
gate
360.
shifter?
Yeah, they'll take the F1 automatic dual clutch,
and
they'll make it into a manual.
Right.
That's very common because number one, maintenance is like horrendously expensive on their automatics, and they want the more engaging feeling. So that's very common. I think we're living in a glorious era that we're not sacrificing anything. If you decide to go manual or PDK, you're getting the top transmission. Tiptronic was still a traditional flush box, if you will. But I always tell people, don't think that you're giving anything up with PDK, because PDK is just freaking so fast. It's you may try to manually shift the gears, but that gets old really quick when you realize the computer's doing it so much quicker than you are. I think it was the first gen of PDK in Sport Chrono Sport Plus. If I remember, when you would put it on Sport Plus, they would take it all the way to red line. And it wouldn't shift until you told it to shift.
Right.
And I can't remember. I remember losing so much time on the track because I would be constantly hitting my head forward because I'd be hitting the red line because it revs so quick. And I finally I'm like, screw it. I'm just putting it in automatic mode and letting the car shift because there's no way I can keep up with. It's not like a manual. It just revs up so quick.
Yeah, the PDKs keep getting better and better, just like the manuals. But the newest PDK, I drove that coming here. I brought my my T, because the weather's nice today, and I haven't driven it in a little while, and it reminds me of how engaging it really is. The sounds, the shifting, everything about it.
Gary talked about all the other electronic aids, let's say, like the rear axle steering and the PASM and stuff. The other comment that a lot of folks like to make is these cars are making worse drivers faster, and I'm not sure if that's a bad thing. It's just
safer.
It's safer, right?
Safer.
I always thought that would have been a good advertising tagline. Porsche, making worse drivers better.
It works for
That's
me.
Works for you.
Works for. I got to tell you that I wasn't too far off of that byline, and I'd say it was about the 991 Gen 1 came in. And racing, I let my FIA license go back because I had to spend like 3 years waiting for it in order to get involved in the sprint series, like, the what's now Carrera Cup and Sprint Cup. And it was in the 991 car. It was still, even though we had paddle shift, it still had, full non-ABS. So you use the brakes to actually slip the front end into the corner. You'd get used to it. And I remember Porsche actually had, you like that Porsche?
Yeah.
Right? It's pretty
Very good. Very good.
So Porsche, it was good, right, Damon? So
We were making fun of him
yeah,
earlier.
making fun of me because right. I won't say why.
Wins the 24-hour the Daytona in a Porsche.
He says Porsche because it comes out quicker. He's all about quick times. It's 2 syllables.
Yeah. But we were. It was like 2015, and Porsche was getting a lot of requests to put ABS in the cars, and it was international. Some like the German Super Cup was like, no way, we're not doing it. We're going to stick with traditional braking because you have to know how to drive the car to be able to brake the car. And yeah, there was an art to it. Like, not everybody could do it.
And the tire manufacturers probably loved the fact that you didn't have ABS because you kept on flat spotting.
Manny, I can tell you now, like we'd go, Yokohama would bring like an extra trailer full of front tires because they knew if we were at Watkins Glen, for every set they sold, they'd need 2 more right front. They need 2 more right front tires for every, because you know what's going on. Yeah, even during qualifying, you're allowed to get 1 tire. Why? Because you knew you were going to break the right front tire. Yeah. So I was one. So when I was actually asked, and I make no bones about it, I was asked like, okay, they thought like I won a lot of the races at that time, and they were like, what's your opinion? What do you want to do? I'm like, you got to keep this manual. You can't have the intervention like that. And so Porsche was very honest in that they kept a real toll of everybody that was part of the audit, was part of the group study. And the consensus was go ABS. So we went Gen 4 ABS, Bosch Race ABS, not the pro version. Yeah. So I was like, can't believe it. We're doing it because everybody got to do it if you want to run the series. So I put Bosch ABS in. I think my first race, I know that it was Mid-Ohio, and it was in the rain. Mid-Ohio in the rain.
What better to showcase the system?
Manny, in the rain. Okay, it's already like ice. You can't even
walk. You would have said all-wheel drive, too.
So I was sitting back in like P7, I moved my way up in the practice, got into a good position. Maybe I was, like P5 or something like that. Couldn't quite get the hang of it. Finally, I realized the only way to run there was to like autocross it. Go in a straight line, get up behind the corner, accelerate. I found myself up in front of the field. So I was in P1 position, I was like P5 going in qualifying, P1, I had a good stretch in the field. I'm coming through madness, and I'm so gelling with the car. I'm sliding with the car, but I put the tire like an inch or two too much to the left. Oh. Now the car's starting to go towards the grass. Oh. And I'm like, oh no, this is like, because if you hit there, it goes downhill, it's over, the car's over. It's like, it's really, really, really bad. So all of a sudden it goes into ABS, and I'm pushing the pedal, and it saved my life. I got up to the corner like I knew what I was doing, had no clue. I was a bad driver. You know what I mean? So I got up to the corner, turned in, got my hands open, went over the hill, came in, won the race. I literally, at that point, I just, it was Jeremy at the time. Jeremy's son was running the, so Jeremy, I came over and hugged him, not for the win. I whispered to him, thank God you put ABS in that car. I was so glad.
The day you became a believer.
I was drinking the Kool-Aid right then and there, right at that moment.
But it does, Porsche does a phenomenal job of, and they're looking at the greater audience of their customers, and they want their customers to have a car that's I'm going to say easy to drive, but essentially easier to drive. And so they put all these high performance driving aids, if you want to call them. I think the technology is incredible. Do I wish it was like my 964? Not really, because I can go back to my 964 if I want to drive. Right. The only thing the 964 does for me, for my ego, is on a tour or something, if I can keep up with the modern GT3, and I say to myself, so this is my skill and my knowledge of driving, because I can keep up with the car with all these features that I don't have. But if I didn't have this driving experience, I wouldn't have been able to keep up.
Right.
Unless I had a GT3 of all this horsepower, that kept me planted. And I made no bones about it when I drove the Taycan Turbo GT on the track I'd never been to. 1,100 horsepower. And I'm like, if I would have been in my 964 with half the horsepower, I would have made it past turn one. I would have looped it, because I said I knew I was driving so bad.
Right.
Because I didn't know where I was going. I was following the car in front of me, but I said, but this car corrected all my mistakes and made my experience so much more pleasurable. So,
Well, I to the end, and I have my 992T. Mm-hmm. So I guess I've got a 992 Gen 1 because it's a 24. And I purposely ordered the car with the electric rear steering. So I ordered the rear steering. I got the aero package because it comes with the exhaust. And with that, they don't even publish a lot of it. But when you get the optional exhaust, you also get the rear bumper cover that's actually the extraction for the intercooler. It's actually perfect for track use. Creates a low pressure area behind it, and it makes the intercooler work more efficiently. And I did the rear steering because I know that the big thing to gain in racing cars is that with the rear steering, you can actually change the wheel. In a way, you're actually changing the wheelbase. You're either adding toe out or toe in, depending if the speed of the car, whether you want it to turn faster. But when you're bending the car into high-speed corners, like at VIR, the car is like getting tighter, and it's incredible what it does. So,
Manny, are people sleeping on the T, meaning they think it's a base model car and they're not even considering, like, oh, at the minimum I got to get is an S?
Well, I think right now anyone's happy with any kind of allocation to get when it comes to two doors.
Yeah,
but I know someone in the region who was waiting for an S allocation and was told that they might have to wait another 2 years for that, but we do have a T allocation. And he took it because he was like, I didn't want to wait 2 years. Oh. And I said, well, you got a hell of a car, because
that's what I think.
That's like the enthusiast car. And he was the same generation as yours.
Oh gosh,
it's and I told him, I said, if it was me, I would get the rear axle steering. If there's nothing else I get,
that's it.
Rear axle. Because they transformed from a 964 wheelbase to a 992 wheelbase. It doesn't really shorten the wheelbase, but it gives you that feeling. So Yeah, I wish the 964 had the rear axle steering.
Yeah.
But it's so smart, and it doesn't intrude upon your driving.
You don't even know it's there.
You don't.
You have no clue. If you drive it, you're not.
I made the mistake of trying to look in my rear mirror to see if I could see it.
It's a millimeter, Manny. It's like
Oh, my
I
God.
think I almost hit something because I'm looking in the mirror.
Well, that's my next question for you. You drive many marques.
I do.
You support the Lamborghini Trofeo series,
McLaren,
McLaren, and other cars. Does the electronic aids in a Porsche, do they have a higher threshold than, say, normal, Toyotas and Mercedes and stuff like that? Like, do they kick in? Do you have to do dumber things in a Porsche before they start to kick in, or are they at the same level?
No, I'd have to say, as the car is, each generation, the programming is that much closer to the race car. Because when I say that the ABS saved me in the race car, in the race car, the thresholds of these things are so different than the road car.
Yeah.
But yet, like my 992, it's pretty close to my race car.
Really?
Yeah, when you're finding a little bit of ABS,
Yeah.
you're practically dragging the tire tread.
Oh.
It's not what you would expect. You're
Right.
not like hitting the brake and it's, you feel
Right.
the
So
thing.
when people are saying about electronic aids,
No.
you probably need it because you're driving
The
it to-
speed.
to
They
the
also
speed of the
have
level.
the beauty of the modes. So if you put it in Sport Plus, you're going to narrow down when those aids come in, start to kick in. So if you leave it in normal, then it's not going to take much for the PSM to kick in. You put it in Sport Plus, it's going to let you take the tail out. It's going to get to a point where it's going to say, wait a minute, there's no way you're going to come out, unless you're York Bergmeister, you're not going to come out of this. So we're going to help you.
It is pretty cool. But the other makes that we deal with, the higher line cars, they're evolving with Bosch electronics, very similar to Porsche. But then there's a lot of makes that we deal with that aren't quite as sophisticated. But I think the level of intrusiveness as the cars get more modern is way lower. And that really, I think, is really two parts. Number one, the newer the chassis, the better the level of grip. You can put more G-force into the tire tread.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing what you can put into a road car now.
So can I ask a loaded question? Because this is PCA Insider and this is the Porsche Club America, but you're heavily involved with development with Lamborghinis, McLarens, Corvettes even.
Right, C8.
Tell us a little bit about where Porsche stands. What makes Porsche unique in terms of, for those that have the money, considering that they could buy like all four, why would they land on a Porsche?
Well, for me, it's it's pretty simple. And it's really the things that I've stated, and that is the safety aspect, the fact that, the amount of wins that you have with the chassis. The other manufacturers are truly doing an amazing job. But I think that we're working a lot with the C8 right now, and they've come a long way. They're brilliant cars, but I think one thing in common from all the manufacturers, they've all taken a Porsche and either copied it, driven it. They've either reverse engineered it to find out because it is the leader.
Yeah.
And I believe that because I get to drive the others. The PDK in my 992 is revolutionary ahead of I dare to even say all the brands, but the brands that you listed, it's ahead of that. It's shifting faster. It's more intuitive.
It's hard to ignore a C8 though, on paper at least. The value of that car, how much it costs compared to a base Carrera.
Oh,
it's hard to, when people ask me about that, I'm like, you really got to go drive both of them. And, if you want a Porsche and that's what you dream about, it's going to be hard. You may not be happy with the Corvette, but if you don't have allegiance to either one, on paper, the Corvette, maybe it's hard to beat the price.
It is, but as always, it's amazing what the Porsche Carrera does with like the base model Z51 Corvette, which I did a lot of testing at VIR. Lap time, very similar when it's tuned, but not out of the box, to a base stock Carrera. The base Carrera with just 400 horsepower can hold its own.
Just 400 horsepower. Are we saying that now? Are we saying just 400
Just
horsepower?
400, because
I
I'm
would love
driving
that.
cars now with 1,000.
That's crazy.
But the 911 to me has always been it fits like a glove. To be at a 992 or 964, I get in it, and the distance to the from the hood to the windshield, everything just fits so perfectly. And I'm thinking, to me, I say it's more than numbers. It's more than horsepower for how much you're paying for it. It's just the feel that a 911 gives me, that when I sit in other cars or drive other cars, I haven't replicated that feeling.
You know, it's interesting. I get to work on the C8. I do development work, and I'm building suspension controllers for that car. But and I bring a lot of the cars into the shop, the workshop, to set the rear caster angle, to do setup in the cars. And then I find out that the owners of these cars are buying Porsche cars.
Yeah.
Because they do get the whole thing. Like, it's actually, they want to find that refined level. And they do find that in the Porsche brand.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's hard to describe to someone the reason you would pay a premium for a Porsche product when something on paper, as you said, the Corvette, power and value and such, and I love those cars too, but you also think long term, like there's a different depreciation for a C8 Corvette versus a 911. Then also, you could buy the no name shoes, or you buy the Nikes, right? Like there's I'm not saying a Corvette's a no name shoe, but what I'm getting at is there's something about a Porsche that, as Manny said, it just feels right. There's Porsche evolves, like from the very first 911 up till today. You can see that family evolution, but with the Corvette, they kind of jumped around. Like they went, from, I love like that cigarette sort of look of the C4, C3, C4s, and then the C7 got super angular, and then the C8 is mid-engine, and it's like they jump around. So that doesn't do it for me personally.
Right. No, I get that. It's almost like their generational change is a whole nother car.
Yeah, and Toyota did that too with like their Supras, right?
Yes.
Like it's just such a wholesale change that it just feels weird to me.
I remember, I just was thinking of Grant Larson when he told us when he got the job at Porsche. All his friends felt sorry for him because Porsche never changes anything in the design department. They're like, "What are you going to do in the design department? They never change anything."
Right.
Yeah.
All you do is just change the length of the bumper cover or something,
Exactly.
the height of it. Like,
Yeah.
no, but every change that they make though is so purposeful. I purposely ordered the Aero kit because I know the amount of time they spend. In not only, just designing it to have the perfect coefficient of drag, the perfect amount of balance of downforce from front to rear. And I really like that attention to detail. And I think that's one of the factors that has really drawn me to the brand. I mean, I do. I own other cars. I own other brands. But I keep coming back to when like you're saying, like I've got different cars. But I love the evolutionary change. But to me, it's evolution. And it's staggering the developments that they've made. And I think a lot of it also is due to the fact that other manufacturers really don't have a racing program.
Right.
The racing program is outsourced.
Yeah.
So when you go to the Chevy,
talk about that all the time.
Yeah, it's really true. I mean, when I would race, like I started off in Motorola Cup, then Grand Am, ALMS, and I would race against like stock Corvettes. Well, the amount of money and the time you have to put into the cars to prepare them. Here I'm running GT3 cars that are basically out of a dealer's lot with a cage in it.
Yeah.
And the carpet set got thrown away.
Right.
Right.
Everybody else, you are the R&D department.
I am the R&D department.
But at Porsche, they've got a whole team.
And they're sharing.
Their customer racing department's always been like that.
Always.
They try to get customers to race the cars as quick as the 963s. They're only out a year before they started selling customer versions.
Yeah. No, it's exactly right. And so I adore that philosophy.
Yeah, and that's your engineering background.
It is.
And Manny talks about that quite a bit of, how many folks in our club with the engineering background really were when they see a Porsche or when it became a part of their dream, because their mindset kind of is one and the same.
It's also interesting. You can be at Daytona for testing, and drivers of the Porsche cars they're factory drivers, but they're also the engineer. They're out of the streetcar program. They're doing 30% streetcar work or 40% streetcar work, but they're also in the race program. That doesn't happen in any other place.
Yeah.
You don't get to share the technology and refine the cars to that level.
Let's get into, you talked about tunes, and in my mind, especially with a Porsche Porsches have always been very efficient. Unlike say a Mustang or Corvette, where you might throw on a set of exhausts and lo and behold, you extract 20 more horsepower to the wheels. But a Porsche from Weissach is pretty darn efficient. In fact, my very first meeting with a TPC employee, aka Mr. Tom Chan, was because I wanted an exhaust on my 87, and this was way back in 2002, 2003.
Wow.
And Tom goes, "Why?" Tom goes, "Why do you want an exhaust for your 87?" I'm like, "Well, get more horsepower." He's like, "Yeah, you should probably just leave it alone, because I could sell you like a $1,500 exhaust, but the actual horsepower you're going to get is not like," because Tom also had a 5.0 back in the day, and he knew I had a 5.0. He's like, "It's not going to be."
He did.
Yeah,
He did.
He's like, "It's not going to be like your Mustang where you."
Did he ever tell you what we named his what his 5.0 was?
No.
It was Juice Tiger.
Juice Tiger.
Because it made so much noise. It sounded, there used to be a commercial on TV, and it was like, it's a something Matic. You know? And it would go, "It's a Juice Tiger. It does this. It
Juice
does that.
Tiger.
It washes clothes. It does."
Oh,
it'll
yeah,
puree,
yeah.
It'll puree. So we named it because it made all that noise.
Made all the noise.
But my stock 993 was faster than the 5.0 Mustang.
Yeah,
And
so-
we used to have so much fun with that.
So that's why, that was my first interaction with TPC. And of course, I kept it stock for a while. And he said, "Just learn to drive, do PCA driver's ed, and so on and so forth." But your business is actually extracting more performance. I won't even just say power, because I honestly, I see you more as the suspension and setup guru, but I think some people in your business see you as more of the horsepower because of your turbo background. But all in all, is you're increasing performance in not only older Porsches, but newer Porsches as well. And then with all the computers and everything that manufacturers have to uphold for the law, makes it more and more difficult. Tell us if an enthusiast came to you today and said, "I want to buy a Porsche that I can have fun with and do some tunes and get more than the factory numbers," like, what car would you be recommending?
Well, I keep going back to the 992 generation car because it is that's their best example of what they're doing. And what's the best car? The car that they're still creating right now, the one they're going to come out with. But that being said, I worked very hard in Grand Am days, like in racing. And the reason Tom says that, Tom was a crew chief on our Grand Am program. We had a 4-car team, and we had up to 33 crew members.
Wow.
We had 2 tractors running. We had really good sponsorship in the Grand Am program. We're in the GT. We were always on the front row. And the way that we kept it there was with engineering. And we did get a chance to work a lot. Very fortunate that with the factory did supply some amazing components through the racing program that you get spoiled on. Mm-hmm. And the amount of development that's done, and the fact that you can mix match, let's say, ramps in the differential, the amount of clutch plates, so we were really into that. The one thing that they opened up was exhaust one year. Because the Porsche, for some reason, they thought that it's about the time that some other brands were coming in with a lot more horsepower.
Okay, so it's more balance of power.
Balance of power.
Okay, yeah.
So I really struggled, and it even started with the 993. Originally, they said we can take off the catalytic converter. Well, I put a straight pipe on. I have a dyno. I dyno it. I meticulously do baseline with data. And I mean, with racing, there's no doubt about it. I mean, your top speed changes based on, either your coefficient of drag or your amount of power, or when you go to the power. I mean, something's going to dictate that mile an hour. And with the 993, I found out that when I took off the cat and I put on a straight pipe, the power went down.
You lost power.
Lost power.
Yeah.
And yet people were taking off cats. I was like, wow. And it makes sense because I come from aviation and I know what an extraction is. You have a divergent and a convergent pipe, and you accelerate mass, and there is a way to actually pick up performance with a cat. So I get it. But I was able to, the rules were, it was open. So I went online and I found an old NACA file, which was the predecessor to NASA. And I found what ended up being like an extractor. So it was like, it had, like, let's say an 11-degree tail cone with a with like a 6 degree. So it made it like a 16-inch pipe with like a 2-inch pipe as a close. So
Yeah.
it created a lot of velocity at the back of the pipe. I made 7 horsepower.
So not a straight pipe, but a V'd
It looked
pipe.
like a megaphone.
Okay,
And it,
yeah.
it was literally a megaphone with a tail cover, and it was worth 7 horsepower.
Really?
And it was huge on my 993. I developed that on my dyno. I bought the different parts. We welded them. We made the part. We showed up on the row, and it was worth a half a fender, which is a mile.
How long
Yeah.
did it take before people realized what you were doing?
They knew it right away, but
Really?
but the thing is, to them, if you take off a cat, they look at it. If it's got to cost horsepower to have a cat, so they'd keep running the cat. I kept winning.
Yeah.
And then it was just me and the Mustangs in the front. That's it. We were the first 2 rows were Mustang and my little air-cooled.
Dyno doesn't lie.
Dyno doesn't lie.
Got it.
So I carried that kind of forward into the Grand Am car. They opened up the headers, and I saw the way that people were traditionally making headers, and I would buy the headers. I'd put them on the car. I'd dyno stuff. I would always keep everything close at hand at what worked, what didn't. We ended up making our own headers, and it looked nothing like what was out there.
Yeah.
It looked like what would come on a big block Chevy, you know, and then the collector was literally, it was down to like 1 7/8, which is,
Oh.
you'd never see anything like it. Made like 11 horsepower, huge number.
Huh.
Okay, but a lot of money, a lot of effort, but worth every penny racing at Daytona, because it's worth no matter where you came out in the bus stop, you had that pass going into turn 1. It was critical number.
And so there's a possibility when people are just bolting on aftermarket parts to their car, bigger isn't necessarily better.
Or bigger can be better as long as there's attention to detail in other areas. So, but there are some really good manufacturers out there. And so I can't speak, I can only speak for what I tested and what I did. And I was doing this in a really, a professional racing series.
Yeah.
And I just carried that forward. But I knew that the gains that I was working on making were very small changes. It's not like you would take off the exhaust in 25 or 35 horsepower. I mean, you were never faced with that kind of stuff.
So did TPC Racing on the street side take off after you won the Rolex, or were you pretty darn busy even before that?
We were really busy before that because I was probably really early to modifying 964s. And I don't even know how many cars we turbocharged.
Okay.
We would bring 964s in. We'd drop the engine and trans. We'd pull the pistons out. They were magnificent pieces of jewelry. We'd lower the compression down to 9-to-1. We'd then put basically the turbo system off of the 911 turbo at the time. It was a Garrett turbo with the heat exchangers right off the air-cooled car.
Mm-hmm.
And we put a gear driven right off the camshaft, a scavenging pump, had an intercooler. Another friend of mine from Nissan was doing the computer hardware. He was doing the programming. So we actually had you call it a piggyback system, and it was really intellectually done. We could put 60-pound injectors on it. We were making like 400 and some to the tire on just a 5 PSI system. I don't even know. We were doing like 60 of them a year.
Mike was very involved with club racing and driver's ed. And just in the area, everyone that was at the track would see his car. And, of course, by the end of the day, they're like, take my money, please.
Right.
I want the same thing to my car. Can you make my car
I
like
would
this?
unload a trailer full of cars that were modified.
So what
at
were
that
you
time.
running before Orange Crush? Because Orange Crush was a 993, right?
No, it was a
964.
964. That was Manny's car.
What was it,
basically.
89 or 90?
90.
Orange
90.
Crush is a 964?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It has the 993 bodywork on it.
Oh.
But originally, when I met Mike, it was still a 964 bodywork on it.
Oh, I didn't
It
know
was
that.
green. It was green.
It was green.
It was green.
Oh,
All I knew
green.
was there was this guy who would come out of the last turn before the front straight, and the front end, you could almost see daylight from the tires. That's so much power. You could see when he was full throttle because the front end will lift so much coming down the straight.
Bill, I was asked at one point. I mean, at I guess it was around 90 something early.
Yeah.
Like when club racing was really, I guess it must have been 95, 96, something like that. I would come out of the hairpin at Sebring, and it would pull air off of the front tires. And I was asked not by PCA, I was asked by the people at the track to not run the car because the front end's off the ground, and they had not seen that before, a car do a wheel stand out of the corner.
Oh, my God.
And so people then started to pay attention, and then people started building cars on the West Coast, and it became a big thing to see. Like, but I was reliably building back then like 650 horsepower to the tire.
Wow.
But back then, they would have said, you know, Mike, in 2020, Porsche's going to have a car that makes 400 horsepower, has this, and this. You would have said there's no way, they can get that much power stock. You know, this is going to,
Manny,
that's how much has changed.
It's so unbelievable. And another reason that I really love the brand, and I do exude it, like I am truly a PCA member. And I do, because I have another car that I think is the extreme example of the Porsche brand, and that's a GT2 car.
Oh, yeah.
It is, to me, I am completely mesmerized by having a car that is literally my factory race car with double the horsepower and torque. And everything it does is just unbelievable. And you're allowed to sell it.
Yeah.
You can actually sell it legally.
Right. Wow, man. So I charge you with this challenge. You recently put the Rolex winning 996 car back on the track. Congratulations to that.
Thank you.
You got to put Orange Crush back together.
I do, but that's going to take some time because it got pretty hurt. Oh, but going back to your point with the tuning, but with the new cars, the beautiful part is, and this is what makes it incredible. People are blown away that there's so much actual performance to be gained out of the factory car, you know, the controllers, the computer. And that is because, like in the case of the 992, it really has the same architecture as the turbo, the 911 turbo. And thankfully, a company like, and I'll give the pump out to Cobb, because Cobb has done, and I mean this, and you can talk to other people, and there's other amazing tuners out there, and I can name those as well, like a good friend of mine, you know, Todd Knighton, does a fantastic job with binaries. But Cobb has really gone the distance on having binary and actual software available to their pro tuners that allows them to stay within the FTP cycle, the federal test procedure.
Okay.
And within the parameters of that, just the difference, like when you look at a 911 turbo making, like, what are they now, 620, 640? I think 640 to the tire. And you look at the difference in the code between the two, and you'll find out that my little T just runs like 14.7 air fuel from, you know, making like 400 horsepower stock, right to red line, does it day and night on the track, whatever. Just by moving the torque tables and by changing, let's say you just say that you want 12 to 1 at 6,500 RPM, and from 4,800 on up, interpolate that value. You go to make a pull in the dyno, 80 more horsepower.
Wow. That's crazy.
It's crazy. And then you can also, to this extent, that a lot of what people are doing, and it's true, and I get the whole thing because I do it for myself. So I purposely bought the car, and I buy the cars with the active exhaust from Porsche, and then I tune that. So what I do is I will work with the engineers at Cobb, and I will then go into the P-Wiz, and I will get the can bits that tell you whether you're at the table or not. They'll then locate those tables to add more and more exhaust tables. So what I do is I tune the exhaust as well, and then I work with that on the dyno. So you can make the car audibly sound right. You can still be within the sound of driving it. So when you're not leaning on the car, it's a great car. It doesn't vibrate. The rear window's not moving. When I was coming over here, I mean, I got to admit, I have so much fun driving the car. I'm bringing the car around the corner. I don't want to say sliding because that might not be right on a public road.
We don't do that.
The car is like, sounds like the race car because the valves are open. As soon as I lean into the burble and the PDK shifts and there's an explosion through the tailplates of the car. You got to drive in my PDK to get it. When you drive in that, you'll go manual who.
Now, for people who have like PASM, a sport PASM, is that something you can play with or adjust, or do you have to just scrap that and get a whole different set of
No, you can totally. And Manny, it's like I look at the TCU, basically even from a 991 Gen 1 to a Gen 2, just the actual, like, the algorithm, just the differences in the tuning as a whole, even though the hardware, the TCU itself will be the same hardware, same part number, but yet the tuning is completely different tables, a different thought process on how to do it. They keep getting better in every generation. My 992 is so incredible compared to my 991. I'm now, like, I always work with my 991 a lot. I love going back to it, but I'm now putting a Gen 2 gearbox in my Gen 1 991, and I'm working with that TCU software, but I've been tuning the TCU with a B flash in my 992. The 992 is just from the factory is
So
magnificent.
I said earlier about how I see you as the suspension guru, and I tell this to a lot of my friends that just get alignments, for example, at a random place. And I said, my father drove Loan's Boxer, which you set up the alignment for, and he has the same 1 year difference Boxster, and he drove, and I didn't even say anything to him because he just borrowed Loan's car for some reason. And he came back and he says, why does her car drive so much better than mine? Without giving, I don't know if there's even a secret sauce other than what you do, but there's a factory setup, and then what I think I told you when we set up Loan's car, I told you we will occasionally autocross it. So I don't know what you did, but it's just a lot more stable, a lot more direct. It doesn't it's not as darty as my dad's car where he got a $99 alignment from somewhere.
I think a lot of it's got to do with attention to detail. And my background is from aviation, and aviation is all about attention to detail. And to me, that's what has drawn me to the Porsche brand, was that incredible attention to detail in every way. In every way. There's nothing spared.
One of the things the detail that I always appreciate, and you did this with Loan's cars, you threw weight onto the driver's seat when you were setting it up.
How much weight did you put?
Can't tell, Manny. I got different weight bags. Let's put it this way.
When I walked away, he put an extra weight bag. Manny,
no,
always have to go there.
We you know what we
but
had.
Not many shops do that.
No, but that's not the only part of it. So everything is critical. Like, everything is critical. That's why if someone says, let's say you have a 2007 Cayman S, and someone says, hey, it works really good if you put 1.7 of rear camber in it and you put 2.2 degrees in the front. Okay.
Yeah.
At what ride height? Because if you move the eccentrics and the car's too low, now the eccentrics are fully out and you have a completely different kinematic in the rear. In other words, your camber gain and your toe gain is totally different. So now you've got to re-engineer your car a little bit based on where and what taught me that is really the 993.
Oh.
And the 964. The attention to detail on the 964 was critical. A lot of guys would just align them.
Yeah.
I spent so much time at the track trying to find that sweet spot of the curve. I would literally leave the track, come back to my shop. I'd weld parts, make them, change those kinematic settings of what some people would perceive as camber, caster, or whatever.
Yeah.
I was changing so many different things in the car to find that, to the extent where my old orange car, the last time I drove that really in anger, it's like Summit Point, like at VIR, which is a track people know. That car, and it's on YouTube, that car did a 53 flat.
53
as an air-cooled car.
Wow.
I did 111 at Summit Point. I used to do that in the time trials. Used to do that in club racing. That's moving. To this day, there isn't many cup
I
cars.
did 111 up to turn 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but all of this, and I used to do when I was racing my 993 in Motorola Cup. It had a restrictor plate, and I would race. I was the only car that could race in the front with the Mustangs. It was because of the rear adjustments. Porsche on the 993, it was a great car, but there was really very few people that they saw the adjustments and they'd make camber change. They'd say, oh, you need 2 degrees of camber. Well, where's the caster? The caster is the most important number, it all goes together. That's why, to me, and this is what I view as an engineer and I really appreciate about the brand, is the fact that it is the perfect complement of the expression of the car. I get to work with other cars. Yes, you're right. The Corvette could have magnificent horsepower.
Yeah.
Maybe another car has better brakes. Maybe one car has a little more chassis. But the Porsche in general is that perfect package. So it goes back to, like, I love to tune the drive line, but I tune it to where it complements the chassis. I love to complement the chassis so that I like the car to stay as the expression of the factory would do.
What are 991, 992, and 718 owners, if they're walking through your door? Maybe it's a two-part question, is what is their most common request? And then what is your common recommendation if they want to take their car to the next level?
And I wanted to ask this because I see people at Cars and Coffee who just picked up these cars and they're like, yeah, I'm going to bring it in to get it lowered. I'm going to get the springs for it. And in my head, I'm thinking, you just can't get springs. Because now the shock is at a different level.
Right.
You know, it may
It's all
look
the
better.
bump
It may
rubber.
look good parked,
Right.
but the ride's really going to change.
And that's 100% true. You can't even say it any other way.
Yeah.
Because you really understand there's a relationship between all of the parts, all of the components. Nothing gets changed without the others being either in jeopardy, compromised. There's always something going, or you have to at least be aware of that's a situation. You're right. You lower a car too much, you're on the bump rubber. If, let's say, you're working in the back of a GT3 car and it has a spring rate of, let's say, 800 pound
Yeah.
spring in the back of it, and you lower it so much that you're actually pushing on the bump rubber. Well, at Sebring, when you're really leaning on that rubber in 17A and B, it's now going from 800 to infinity. That's why the rear keeps stepping out.
Yeah.
And because you're not thinking about the whole, a lot of times on some of the race cars, we're not allowed to change the length of parts. So they might give us a ride height. Let's say they say in the back of the car, we're allowed to run 100 millimeter from the measured point to the scale pad, when you go through tech. Well, I might run 103 or 105 there because I don't want to hit the snubber. So I'm going to raise my car up a little bit. I'll go faster because I'm not on that. Then other people think of that too. But that is part of like the setup of the car. And you have to so everything has a compromise. Everything has a situation that you got to be aware of. But I've got to be really complimentary to the Porsche owner in general.
Yeah.
Really, in general. At least they're working on the chassis. Because to me,
That's your most common request when they come in your shop?
it is.
Yeah.
And I'm really complimentary and I like it. Because at the end of the day, if somebody has a car that only handles okay, and they're like, I want 50 more horsepower, the car's not going any faster at the speed at the racetrack.
Right.
It's just
Right.
not.
It's just not.
You might see a mile an hour somewhere, but then you'll give it all up because the car's sliding around in the brake zone. It's just, or the car, even when you're exiting the corner, if you got a little bit of tire spin, the lap's done. You just lost a tenth or two. You can't get back. And so, but then I'll get other brands, they come in and they're like, and I can tell everyone, like when they come in with, I shouldn't even say, but they'll always come in and they'll have 100 or 200 more horsepower.
Oh my.
And the cars already were diabolical, and they're like, I'm like, oh my God. You can hear it when it comes in, it's loping and jumping because a lot of people won't set the caster angle on certain cars in the rear and they've got to be calmed down. So it is chassis. So yeah, 718, the other cars, yeah, my compliments to the Porsche owner. They're always, I think, conscious of the chassis.
I'm assuming they're saying, I want to change the suspension, and they're letting you
have my way.
Yeah, exactly.
Have my way.
Versus telling you exactly what they want.
Yeah. No, they come in for advice, and I really try to understand because you know what, not everybody wants the same thing. Yeah. Because some people are going to go to the track, but I like a compromise of being able to do. To me, the car has to be a well-rounded car, so it should look great at Cars and Coffee. And right now we're actually working on different springs for the new cars because they're so incredible at this point, of getting a little, maybe dropping 20 millimeter, but in keeping that really fantastic spring rate that they have. It's really the attention to detail from the manufacturers. On all manufacturers now are incredible.
I thought you were going to say you're developing a spring package for Cars and Coffee.
Cars again. I thought that's where it was going. That's where
No.
Because the funny thing, I have friends who will ask me, I'm going to change the suspension. I'm like, you only go to Cars and Coffee.
I know. But
why do you need
But in a way, we are developing the spring. We want to give them the look, but at the same time, I refuse. I refuse to give up the I don't want to make the car. Yeah,
you don't want to make a dump truck.
Yeah.
It looks pretty,
right,
but it rides like a dump truck.
Right. Or it doesn't handle it.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't want to give that away. So no reason to.
I'd like to look into the future because Manny, Damon, and I got an opportunity to test drive, so to speak, modern technology with the GTS T Hybrid.
The amazing
GTS.
car.
The future
really
probably
is.
of Porsche ice-powered
Have
cars.
you had a chance to drive it yet? Or
I have not. I would love to.
yeah.
Yeah.
But-
I'm always excited about the new models coming out. I really am. I mean,
But you're getting a Corvette hybrid, aren't you?
I've got one.
You got one, aren't you?
I've got one. I'm using it for, and
it
I'm
E-Ray?
excited. It is an
E-Ray,
E-Ray.
okay.
I was excited to pick up the car, Manny, right away. We had a Z06 in our inventory that we're using for development, and so we finished with the 20 to 23 development cars, and the 24 and up, they had a difference in, they went to CAN FD from regular CAN. And really, nobody's been hacking through FD really well. So it's taken us like a year. But as soon as I heard the E-Ray was coming, at first I didn't understand what it was. But as soon as the light bulb went off, I had to grab one. And I'll be doing the same with the Porsche, because it is the perfect complement, adding the hybrid to the performance car. It is.
Well, we all drove it, and I think we all fell in love with it. And how, honestly, if it didn't have the sticker on the side and you didn't tell me,
You wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know.
I know.
All you knew is this car gets up and goes, and there was no flat spot anywhere, no waiting for power to come
My
on.
old man hearing, I forgot I had a turbo. They even could hear the turbo. I'm like, I could hear any turbo.
Oh yeah.
You know, the E-Ray is really exciting. And that's what I'm really looking for in the Porsche line. I know in the future they're going, that's the direction.
They
of the
have
car.
to, because they've reached the maximum almost of what they can extract from an internal combustion engine. So it only makes sense that they're looking at hybrid to keep going with the higher. Not that we need that much horsepower, but who's going to say no to horsepower?
It's also the handling.
Yeah.
Like, I'm realizing the thing that really drew me to, like, we have a McLaren program, and we know that the Artura has like 200 horsepower in the front axle. So it's got two AC motors in the front. What it actually does is it gives you an infinite adjustability up into the corner on braking, not acceleration. So it gives you this amazing platform. Porsche is going to go into this level. Others aren't.
As someone who's worked with turbos all his life, for at least as long as I've known you, you really got to admire what they did with this electric turbo and how they keep spooling it. They have it spooled up and ready to go.
I'm jealous of it because I've got, you know what, it is incredible. I'd love to see what's going on in the engine control unit and see how the timing of this is going on. And it's brilliant. It's like you're taking modern technology to another level.
To me, it gives me hope for the future that internal combustion engine will be around for a while. And this is just going to complement.
Oh, yeah.
Mainly because I keep on telling everyone, I said, you don't feel the hybrid at all. It feels like a normally aspirated car. The power just comes on so instantaneously.
It's right. It's seamless.
Yeah, exactly.
I bet it is. In the Chevrolet, it's similar.
I can't wait for a turbo performance center modified GTST hybrid.
I'm sure.
It's coming, man.
I was about to say, I'm sure there's one coming for the research inventory.
Oh, it has to.
Wow.
I mean, I'm intrigued by that. That draws me in.
Well, we're at the top of the hour, so I'm going to remind folks to be sure to head over to PCA.org and sign up for PCA's newsletters, performance news, e-brake news, and Mart Fresh news, all free. There's a bit of Porsche news here. Manny talks and listed about the 718 internal combustion dead for 2025.
Yes. Well, that's not news. We've known about it, and anyone that went to Tech Tactics heard Michael Tam say, if you haven't ordered your 718, you may be a day late already. So the fact that they're formally announcing the production's ending, no surprise. I think Porsche was hoping to have the EV version already in place, but now they're having issues with the company that was making this special battery going bankrupt. So I'm sure Porsche wasn't expecting this gap between models. But hopefully sooner than later it'll come out with the electric version. But it's kind of sad to see the end of the
Will they continue with
version.
the GT4 version?
No.
Okay.
They said all variants are gone. Yeah, you can still buy GT3.
That's the rumor. That's the rumor in the race mill.
Yeah, maybe they will make special club sports. Yeah. Never say never with Porsche, especially for small run stuff, because I remember hearing when the 962 was no longer, when I was writing the story about the special 964, what was it? Not the club sport, the one that Bob Miller had.
Oh, the lightweight?
The lightweight, C4 lightweight, yeah. That they had to stop production midway. They're only making like 21 of these cars, but after 10, to build more 962s, even though they weren't racing them for a Japanese series. So, yeah, I wouldn't put it past Porsche for the race cars to continue making them for
Yeah.
a race series.
Yeah, and especially under current climate, who knows? Then things change.
Hey,
change
what's more
course all the
important,
time.
the street cars or the race cars?
Well, the money.
The money.
There's a
race
lot of money.
cars,
And there's
the
a
race
lot of
car.
money in customer motorsports.
Right.
Exactly. All right. I want to remind you that Porsche Parade is in Oklahoma City, July 6th through 12th. Phase 2 is open, and there's still room if you want to join us if you haven't signed up yet. It's going to be an incredible program, lots of VIPs, lots of reveals, and of course, we're celebrating our 70th anniversary with a special display. Works Reunion Monterey, August 15th. Registration is currently open, and it's filling up fast. So if you haven't signed up for Monterey, make sure you do so. I'm going to talk about it, but it's probably going to be sold out by the time this podcast airs, and that's Treffen, Stuttgart, Leipzig. We're teaming up with Avant-Garde and the Porsche Travel Experience, where they're offering a very unique factory experience July 13th through 18th, and only 20 participants or 10 couples. It's a very, very small group, but it's going to be an unforgettable
That's
tour.
not Avant-Garde who sold our car.
No. No.
Just so
It's
people
a-
who listen
yeah.
to the podcast aren't confused.
No, same name, but different. And also, of course, we have Treffen at Sea 2025, the 70th anniversary cruise, leaving out of New York August 30th through September 6th. And Damon, do you have any video updates or?
Ah,
good.
there we go.
Yeah, there we
Damon's
go.
on the screen.
I'm on the screen
I
now.
was waiting.
Yeah, so I think I have some updates here because I'm working on a video that David Bankston, our electric Porsche expert at the club, has edited for me. I'm just putting the final touches on it. So by the time you hear this, that should be out. Then I'll be starting my review of the Carrera 4 GTS-T Hybrid, which I was able to film in the short time I got to drive it. And of course, look forward to our podcasts. And I'm not thinking of any other videos we have on the schedule. There's still a
the
couple more
EV
road
body,
colors.
EV one comes out, even if you hate EVs.
Yep.
It's so interesting because he documents how they change the battery, and I looked on YouTube to see if anyone else had done a similar video. We couldn't find one where they go into the depth of what exactly is involved. You probably love it, Mike.
I would actually. I would like to see
the
that.
paste they use. I mean, it's really fascinating how they replace the cells, and it's about what, a 20-minute video, 25-minute video.
Yeah, it's about 20, 30 minutes or so. So that's the one by our EV expert. And yeah, it's all about the Taycan battery. Super interesting. There really is nothing out there quite like it that's that detailed. As a complement to that, we've already filmed it at Tech Tactics East. And Manny, I believe you've already gone through it and given me the timestamps. We're just waiting for the best time to release it. But we also have a presentation by Tom Anderson, about maintaining these things. So in one video, you'll get to see how does the battery work, whereas you might rebuild an engine, how do you rebuild a battery or fix a battery? So you'll see all of that, and then you'll be able to see all the equipment that's used, whether that's tools for the car and the battery, and also some pretty hardcore safety equipment that you have to use and procedures for maintaining them as well. And what Porsche does at their
Makes
shops.
me wonder 20 years from now when you're going to have these guys showing how to fix things on EVs, and they're not going to have any safety or whatnot.
No.
When I watch my lawnmower ones and the blades are running and they're showing how to fix something.
Off comes a foot.
Yeah, I mean,
Time you're grab that piece of grass right when the blade passes.
Oh,
and just-
yeah. I get nervous when I do electrical work on the house. I can't imagine working high voltage.
That has to be, though, pretty interesting to see. Not only the change-up, but it's interesting to hear someone that really knows about the EV market and the batteries.
Sure.
Because I always wonder, because I obviously come from the lead-acid AGM world, and I understand how lead acid works, how much voltage per cell, the difference between AGM and that and the voltage. And then I understand some of the lithium ion and then some of the newer technology. But then maintaining those batteries is really a thing too. Like, is it better to keep it at 80% than 100? I mean, just your basic household, keeping with it.
Tom's presentation, it's from what the dealers do to prepare your car when it goes in. And he goes really step by step. And finally, somebody asked, "How long does it take before they actually start working on your car?" And he chuckled. He said, if you know what you're doing, 15 minutes.
Right.
He goes, I'm just taking my time showing you step by step because the presentation is almost an hour long. And I thought the same thing. I'm like, holy cow, it takes like an hour before they even start working on your car because they got to basically make sure the car has no residual power that could hurt the technician.
That's right.
And so they go through all these steps, like Damon said, for safety. Anyways, both of them are going to be pretty interesting, even if you're not an EV fan. But if you love engineering, it's a very interesting video.
Very good. Also want to remind you to check out PCA Sim Racing if you want to race against fellow PCA members online, pcasimracing.com. Insider swag, if you're looking for swag, we have bottles, mugs, T-shirts available at the PCAwebstore.org. Or if you'd like some PCA Insider decals, send us your address information to podcast@pca.org. So in closing, has Porsche lost their way? And your final answer to that?
My answer to that is Porsche leads the way. And it has definitely not lost the way. The proof is in driving my little T. And I've watched the evolution of how the cars have come. And every one, I swear, when I leave the dealer, I'm like, can't get better than this. But I know darn well it's going to get a lot better. But has it lost its way? No. Has definitely not. I get just as much excitement out of jumping in my T as I do jumping in my 71S. And I wouldn't really change the gearbox. I like the old 901 dog box. I understand my 993, but it's never going to be the 992 because it has not lost its way. It is the way.
There you go. That's why we invited you, ladies and gentlemen, from the expert himself. Thank you for listening. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Consider sharing our show with fellow Porsche enthusiasts. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you down the road.